It was Christmas Eve, and for the first time since her husband died. Sarah Whitlock wasn't pretending to be strong anymore. The house was cold, the pantry was nearly empty, and the only gifts under the tree were the ones her 2 children had made from paper and ribbon scraps. Snow piled against the window, blurring the world outside into a sheet of white, and as Sarah stood over the stove staring into an empty pot, the truth hit her so hard that her knees weakened. There would be no Christmas dinner this year. She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth, trying not to cry where her children could hear. It had been a brutal year. Her husband, Daniel, had passed away in late spring, after a long illness that drained their savings and her strength. She had taken in sewing jobs when she could find them, but winter slowed everything. Few dollars she earned were barely enough to keep the house heated. She had hidden hunger before. She had hidden fear before. But hunger on Christmas, that felt unbearable. Behind her, little Emma, only 6, asked, "Mama, what are we having for Christmas dinner tomorrow?" The words sliced her open. Sarah swallowed hard. "Something special, sweetheart," she whispered, though she had no idea what that could be. Her son Jacob, older than his years at just 10, quietly folded a blanket tighter around Emma. He didn't ask questions. He had seen enough nights of thin meals to know what was coming. Outside, a sharp knock startled them all. Sarah wiped her eyes quickly and opened the door to find Henry Dawson, her widowed neighbor. A quiet man in his late 50s, Henry rarely visited anyone, though he always helped when asked. He stood in the snow with his coat dusted white and a small crate in his arms. "Evening, Sarah," he said with a gentle nod. "Thought I'd check in. Storm's getting rough." Sarah forced a small smile. "Oh." Whoa. Henry's eyes drifted past her to the nearly dark kitchen and the empty stove. He didn't comment. Instead, he set the crate down. "I was cleaning out my pantry," he said softly, "and I realized I had more than I needed. Thought I'd share." Sarah blinked as she looked into the crate: potatoes, carrots, flour, dried beans, even a small jar of honey, enough to stretch for days, enough to make a Christmas meal. Her breath caught. "Henry, I can't accept all this." "It'll go to waste if I keep it," he said lightly, though they both knew that wasn't true. "Let me help, Sarah. It's Christmas." For the first time that day, warmth spread through her chest. She nodded, unable to speak around the lump in her throat. Henry helped her bring the crate inside. The kid's eyes widened, and Emma squealed when she saw the jar of honey. Henry chuckled, ruffling her hair gently. Then he said something Sarah didn't expect. "If you don't mind some company tomorrow, I'd be happy to join you for Christmas dinner. Been a long time since I've had one." Sarah hesitated. She hated the idea of anyone seeing how thin the holiday truly was. But the hope in her children's eyes was impossible to deny. "We'd love that," she said quietly. On Christmas morning, the world outside was covered in thick, glittering snow. Sarah woke early, determined to make the best meal she could. She turned the potatoes into a creamy mash, roasted carrots with honey, baked warm breads from the flour, and simmered a hearty bean stew that filled the house with a smell that made her children dance around the kitchen. For the first time in a long time, the house felt alive. Henry arrived carrying something covered with a cloth. When he placed it on the table and lifted the cloth, Sarah gasped. A roasted chicken, golden and steaming. "I traded with the Millers for it," he said quietly. "Figured Christmas should feel like Christmas." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She had forgotten what kindness like this felt like. Together they set the table, just a simple wooden table with mismatched plates. But to Sarah, it looked like a banquet fit for kings. When they all sat down, Henry bowed his head. Daniel would have been proud of you, he said gently. You've kept your family together through everything. That's no small thing. Sarah pressed her hands to her mouth, shaking. She hadn't heard Daniel's name spoken with kindness in months. Jacob and Emma leaned into her, and for the first time since losing her husband, Sarah let herself cry not from grief, but from gratitude. They ate until their stomachs were full and their hearts even fuller. Laughter echoed through the house. Humma told stories. Jacob asked Henry about the old days on his farm, and Henry smiled more than Sarah had ever seen. When the meal was over, Henry stayed to help clean up. As they washed dishes side by side, Sarah said, "Thank you for everything." "I don't know how to repay you." Henry shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. I've been alone since my wife passed. I'd forgotten what a home filled with voices sounded like." He paused. "You gave me more than I gave you today." Sarah's breath caught at the sincerity in his voice. She hadn't realized how lonely he must have been, too. As Henry put on his coat to leave, Emma ran up and hugged him tightly. "Are you coming back tomorrow?" she asked. Henry froze, touched. "If your mama says it's all right?" Sarah smiled warmly. "You're welcome anytime, Henry." He nodded, emotion flickering through his eyes. "Then I'll see you tomorrow." Tomorrow turned into the next day, and the next. Henry stopped by with fresh milk from a neighbor, or extra firewood, or simply to share dinner. The children grew attached to him, and he grew attached right back. Winter softened, spring arrived, and by summer, it was impossible to imagine their lives without him. He helped Jacob learn carpentry, taught Emma how to plant a garden, and helped Sarah fix things around the house that Daniel used to do. One warm evening, as the sun set in shades of pink and gold, Sarah found Henry repairing her broken porch step. She brought him lemonade and sat beside him. "You've done so much for us," she said softly. "I hope you know how grateful I am." Henry wiped his hands on a cloth. "Sarah, I don't want to overstep, but these last months, being here with you and the kids, it's felt like home again." Sarah's heart fluttered. She had pushed away the idea of companionship out of fear of replacing her husband, fear of loving again. But Henry was never trying to replace anything. He simply filled the empty spaces with kindness. "I feel the same," she whispered. "You've become part of our family." Henry's eyes warmed. "Then maybe we could make that official someday." For a long moment, Sarah looked at him, the man who had walked into her darkest Christmas and brought light with him. A man who didn't try to fix her grief, but sat beside her in it. A man who showed love without demanding it. "I think I'm finally ready." A year after that cold Christmas Eve, Sarah's home was filled again, not with sorrow, but with joy. They married in a small ceremony under the old oak tree behind the house. Jacob stood proudly as best man, and Emma scattered flower petals while giggling with delight. Henry promised to cherish not just Sarah, but the children too, and he meant every word. That Christmas, their table overflowed with food and family and warmth. No empty pot, no silent rooms, no loneliness. And every year after, when snow fell outside their window, Sarah would remember that first Christmas after Daniel died, the one when she thought everything was lost,